GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
From wherever we decide studios, broadcasted live on iTunes, Spreaker, and worldwide, this is the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast with your host, the producer, Pat G. The G stands for gangsta. And now kick back and get ready for the eargasms.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast. Yes, we've been away for a while because, you know what, me and Dan are both adults and we have adult things happening, so we can't always just record stuff. More so than Dan because of his life situations than mine, but nonetheless, we're here. We're going to bring you a good 90 minutes to 2 hours of wrestling talk, catching you up on everything that's been happening and some other topics as they've been covered by your other outlets, your busted radios, and so on and so forth. But still, nonetheless, you love the sounds of our voices, so here we go. Of course, I'm Pat G. The G stands for gangster, joined by Dan Fury. Dan, how are you today?
Dude, everything is fine. It's 90 degrees outside. It's a beautiful day. We're recording a podcast talking about pro wrestling. It couldn't get any better than that.
Absolutely. So, starting off first, of course, we're coming off of AEW Double or Nothing, one of the best shows of the year. And then on top of that, AEW has been making a lot of moves by signing people and making them all elite. On the pay-per-view, they announced that they recently signed Mark Henry to come in and be a coach and be a voice for AEW Rampage, as well as there's a potential for Mark Henry getting in the ring. What does this do for AEW with having Mark Henry in that locker room?
All right, so first off, let's look at it. He signed with WWE, I believe, in 1996, 95, 96.
Something like that.
Final deal. Okay, so he had been around the WWE system for all of these years. He's got a wealth of knowledge and understanding the product, and also something that a lot of these guys who go to AEW need to understand is timing for television. AEW is about to expand with 2 shows now, one on TBS, one on TNT. They're going to need to produce talent. They're going to need to produce good quality television, because I know the knock is AEW is like TNA or WCW 2.0. But I'd like to believe that Tony Khan and the AEW staff, being students of professional wrestling, have made better deals with Turner Sports than previous wrestling programs had. And they need to expand. You're going to need commentators. Mark Henry is he's got a great personality. When he's not, the House of Pain or Hall of Pain Mark Henry, he's one hell of a charismatic person. Also, he's someone whose brain you want to pick with all these years of experience. And he can teach big guys how to be big guys.
Absolutely. And this is the same reasoning when they announced that Paul White had joined AEW. I'm like, Paul White has over 30 years of experience between WCW, WWE, and doing all the stuff behind the scenes, even though he could still perform in the ring. The thing that I see, though, is, and this is where the internet wrestling community, or otherwise known as the IWC, come in. They're looking at it as, the AEW is just signing all these WWE guys and everything. And then, of course, you look at the most recent episode of Dynamite with the announcement by Vicky Guerrero of Andrade.
And it's such a steal.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing is, I even talked to a friend of mine about this, is yes, AEW is bringing in these former talents, your Stings, your Paul Whites, your Mark Henrys, your Christian Cages, and your Andrades, so on and so forth. Yes, they're bringing in these former talents that were in the other company, but the thing is they're not bringing them in as top stars right off the bat, because if you look back in the early 90s, when Hulk Hogan left WWF and went to WCW while shooting Thunder in Paradise, and they did the big parade and everything. Slowly after that, you had a lot of the 80 superstars trickle into WCW. Macho Man, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Earthquake, so on and so forth, where now it's not so much that WWE talent's getting signed by AEW. Yes, they're signing with the company. There's another access to wrestling or whatever, but they're coming in and helping build the AEW talent up. They're using their name value and their experience to help build these guys that your casual wrestling fan do not know about. Look at what Chris Jericho has done in the last 6 months for MJF.
Well, okay, you can look at what AEW has done with its big name guys. We're going to exclude anyone that is in the Elite, and the Elite would be the Bucks, Kenny, Hangman, and Cody.
Yes.
Let's ignore them completely in this equation.
Yes.
Let's go with anyone that your casual wrestling fan would be like, oh, it's Sting. Okay, did Sting show up and go straight for the AEW Heavyweight Championship? No, he didn't. They've matched him with Darby Allin. And since then, they have elevated Darby Allin, not only using the TNT Championship, okay, but they have elevated Darby Allin with Sting to where Sting and him have a sensei-student relationship. Sting had one of the most memorable nights in AEW history with that match that he recently had with Darby Allin and Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. Dude, one of the best, I mean, let's be honest, that was one of the best matches of the card, if not of the year, because Sting at 62 years old still has it. But they built Darby Allin, and they continue to build Darby in such a fantastic way. Jake the Snake Roberts being in Lance Archer's corner. Jake the Snake Roberts isn't getting in there and taking super bumps. He is using his name to elevate talent.
Yes.
Big Show and Mark Henry being on the microphone are able to, as in-ring performers, do what Taz does. Now, Taz being only part-time on the mic when it comes to his stable, Team Taz.
Yep.
Even then, you've got Brian Cage. Brian Cage, the Swolverine, the Machine, the FTW champion. He is about to have a phenomenal career, and they use Taz to bring him up. And in the battle royal that they had at AEW Double or Nothing, it came down to two guys in the ring, Christian Cage and Jungle Boy. And sitting there on my couch watching that pay-per-view, and watching that match come down to those two guys, I said, in my mind, I'm thinking, Edge won the Rumble. They're going to have Christian win this, and it's kind of going to be a nod to the two. Nope. Christian went out there, and he took a young kid in Jungle Boy and made him the future of the company. Because that's what these guys realize, that in all of this time coming up, there's going to need to be new talent. Jericho built up in the last several years, starting from his first appearances, right?
Yep.
Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, Orange Cassidy, MJF. His feud with Cody Rhodes was pretty dank, to the fact that they even put the stipulation in that if Cody loses, he never gets a heavyweight championship shot again. Okay. And in this stable for Inner Circle, he has helped put over Shawn Spears. He has helped put over Sammy. He has helped put over Jake Hager. LAX is now one of, they could go on to win the tag team championships, and I think that might happen against the Bucks. His run with Moxley made Mox a household name if he wasn't already before, and it helped make Mox the #1 guy for Pro Wrestling Illustrated last year based on his performances against Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega and his work in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Absolutely.
They're doing the smart thing that WCW didn't do, where if a WCW talent didn't want to lose, okay, I'm not working.
Yeah,
I just won't show up.
Yeah, exactly. And also the thing is what happens is you have Tony Khan, who is a fan of professional wrestling. And then on top of it, yes, they are on TNT. Yes, they are on TBS. Yes, it's no longer it's AOL Time Warner or whatever it may be, whatever who owns TBS, TNT, or whatever. It's not Ted Turner. It's not that conglomerate of people that at one point were like, yo, we don't want wrestling. We need to we would need to do whatever we need to do to get out of it. And then on top of it, you don't hear the problems that you once heard about the shows get preempted because of NBA coverage or this coverage. They're like, hey, you want to run us on a Friday night at 10 p.m.? That's fine. We'll run it Friday night at 10 p.m. You know what? Because if you look at it, SmackDown's over by 10 o'clock. All those fans that were watching SmackDown are going to migrate to watching us because they're like, hey, we're home on a Saturday night because whatever, and there's still pro wrestling on.
And they've got smart people working this. Like, I know that for whatever reason, I'll never understand this. In life, like, if you are starting something new within a genre, or you are trying to be successful at something after being successful elsewhere and believing that you can do better, there's like this small portion of people that, and sometimes in wrestling communities, large groups of people that just want to see it fail. Okay, Andrade was a talent that everyone wanted to see succeed in WWE. It didn't happen that way. So what's he do? Goes back to AAA. He and Kenny Omega are going to have a title for the AAA championship. Okay, he shows up on AEW television, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, they're getting another WWE reject. Y'all weren't saying that when Brody Lee showed up. Y'all weren't saying that when Miro showed up. Miro is now TNT champion. Brody was TNT champion to the point where everyone was waiting for that heavyweight championship push that he was inevitably going to have. You look at the talent that they're getting and the moves that they have made, and I believe they're thinking long term, because one of the things that Nitro and Thunder didn't do successfully was they were trying to, and it's something that has been brought up in Guy Evans' book and on numerous podcasts and documentaries and series, is that WCW had X amount of wrestlers. Turner wanted Y amount of time.
Yep.
Their contracts were for Z. Well, Z, X, and Y didn't line up. So what were they supposed to do? That's when they started to have issues with storytelling and booking. Now, one of the main reasons, according to all of these documentaries, that they brought in Bret Hart at the end of 1997 was because they knew they were going to be launching Thunder and they needed more talent. Okay, hypothetically speaking, if that was 1,000% the case, then the entire show Thunder would have been built on the back of one guy, Bret Hart. Instead, it was NWO Part 6.
Yep.
And whatever people didn't make it on Nitro that week just happened to show up. With the expansion of the roster and the people that they are currently getting, you have an opportunity to have a brand split between two shows, genuinely not crisscrossing each other, unless it comes to pay-per-views. So in essence, you're creating a brand split with a unified pay-per-view, which is the same formula that WWE is currently doing, but it's going to give an opportunity for other superstars to get on there, even if it's a 1-hour show.
Yeah.
Which I believe at the start of it's only going to be an hour.
Yeah.
So you have the YouTube show Dark, which is featuring a lot of the guys that aren't able to make it on all the time, as well as independent wrestlers wrestlers, and we know several of them. You have this new show that's going to be on TBS, which is going to have its own different roster from the sounds of it, from what Cody Rhodes has leaked online and what Tony Khan has given little snippets to.
Yep.
And then you have Dynamite, which seems to be the flagship show. But the cool part about that is you're going to need talent. And if you people keep wanting new talent, someone's going to have to put that talent over. And if someone as ring experience as Christian Cage, Matt Hardy, Chris Jericho, Mark Henry, Sting, Jake the Snake Roberts, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, whomever you decide to throw out there as an older personality, they already have name recognition. Shit, I wear my AEW Sting shirt out in public and people are like, oh, that's a cool old shirt. I'm like, old shirt? Bitch, I got this in December. Like, he still wrestles. What? Like, people know these names.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, you're going to end up seeing some of these talents show up, and it's like, and every time WWE gets rid of a bunch of talent, everyone makes fun of who's going to show up next. Well, hypothetically speaking, these people aren't in their 50s that are being released. They're in their late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, and this is the thing is, Booker T just talked about the release of Lana. He talked about how Lana was released, and he instantly said, instantly pairing Lana in AEW with her husband would be a great match, because he related it to the situation with him and Sharmell doing King Booker and Queen Sharmell. And Sharmell was constantly in the power plant or training facilities and everything, and she was training and up until a point. And then when she tore her ACL, that's when he looked at her and said, "Look, you're not a worker, but you have an ability to do this." And she rolled into that manager position. All the stuff, all the work that Lana has done over the past year and everything, yes, she's busted her ass to get to where she is. But at the end of the day, Lana's not that great of a worker. She's not. So her being picked up by AEW and getting paired with her husband, and maybe she doesn't do the whole ravishing Russian gimmick or whatever, because WWE copyrights infringement, whatever. She's just herself, but she adds that mix into it. She adds that little.
Yes. Keep going. I'm with you. I'm following you.
She adds that little. She doesn't like go on the full like Russian accent or like what she was, but she's like, "Hey, I'm CJ Perry. I'm Miro's husband," or even not even CJ Perry. She adopts a female Bulgarian name or something like that, and she's the voice and everything, and she uses parts of what she was when they debuted originally, and he was the Bulgarian Brute, because that's what he's gone back to in AEW. He's gone back to that Bulgarian Brute style that he had in NXT and his early run after he debuted.
Dude threw Jake the Snake Roberts' Python 25 feet up a ramp the other night.
Yeah, like he threw it back. Granted, we don't know if there was an actual snake in the bag, but the
crowd acted like there was one.
Oh yeah, it gave you the suspension of belief that there was a goddamn snake in that bag. Mm-hmm. And he launched it.
And even if drop the accent, be herself.
Yeah.
Be the person that got in trouble for, being a spokesperson for Bang energy drinks last year.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
We had an episode which we talked about it because it was when the Twitch stuff was happening.
Yep, the third party stuff.
Oh, well, WWE doesn't endorse Bang. Well, if you show any of those backstage documentaries, 3/4 of your locker room are walking around with a can of the shit. So you guys don't want her to make money on it. Well, who would you want to make money on it? Let the girl make a couple extra bucks in the pandemic. And not only that, but with these recent, releases, and we can get into that now if you want.
Yeah.
One of the things that kills me is a lot of the talents that have recently been released this year were not old people. And I throw old up in quotation marks. Dude, I'm going to be 39 in a couple weeks. I'm old. Okay? But if you look at the ages that these people are, Ruby Riott is only 30 years old. She's been with the company for what, 6 years? 6 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so she's 30 years old. All right, you mean to tell me that Ruby Riott at 30 years old and having only done 6 years with WWE, that's it for her in professional wrestling? Nope, she can never go anywhere else. She's old. She's used up. She was in WWE for 6 years. I mean, she should never be on television again.
Yeah.
Screw that. Ruby Riott is the best female talent that WWE did not give a title run storyline to in the last 5 years. She was the most unique looking.
Yep.
She definitely had the microphone skills. She had the stable to back her up, and she never faced Ronda Rousey or Asuka during her dominant runs in WWE or NXT. She literally is one of the best talents. She's 30. You mean to tell me that if AEW were to say, here's a contract, you would not want to see Dr. Britt Baker versus Ruby Riott's new personality?
Yeah. So before we get into the deeper of the releases, okay? So you sent me the message of a tweet by Tama Tonga about him thanking New Japan Wrestling for not firing him during a global pandemic.
Yes.
Interesting fact. So since and this is coming from comicbook.com. They have an article.
Yeah, and they are a very good resource. Believe me, whenever anything breaks in comic book entertainment and professional wrestling, shockingly enough,
they're very valid. So,
yeah.
WWE released a massive number of wrestlers since the start of 2021. While a few names popped up earlier in the year, your Paul Whites and so on and so forth, the big first round of cuts came on April 15th. Mm-hmm. These included Samoa Joe, Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, Mickie James, Chelsea Green, Tucker Kalisto, Wesley Blake, Bo Dallas, Mojo Rawley, and that. Now, WWE, according to the article, also released a number of they released 30 talents last year in 2020. So and this was April 15th, shortly after WrestleMania, and that was known as the Black Wednesday. That's when Rusev was released, Drake Maverick, even though he got to come back for NXT, EC3, Zack Ryder, so on and so forth. A lot of the guys that you've seen in your Impacts, ROHs, and AEWs over the last year.
The Good Brothers after their match with involvement with Leo
Rush, the Good Brothers, and everything. Deonna Purrazzo, Heath Slater. So this is the thing, is you also now have the most recent cuts of Braun Strowman, Aleister Black, Lana, Ruby Riott, Buddy Murphy, Santana Garrett, and others. The thing is so you look since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, WWE has released almost 60 talents in a little under a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
60 talents in a little under a year and a half during a global pandemic, where when they released the 30 last year after WrestleMania, a good number of them, they didn't have anywhere to go. because they didn't have that name value to them.
And the world was shut down.
Yeah. So it's like, yes, and there's been reports about the recent releases they made. Braun Strowman having almost $1 million contract. Aleister Black being told it was due to budget cuts. And Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, and everything. Honestly, how cool would it be to have, because you have Impact, where Impact Wrestling has a very strong women's division. AEW has a very strong women's division. How cool would it be to on an AEW or Impact episode, the Riot Squad shows up, and it's Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, and Sarah Logan, and they're as what they were previously known, especially on the independents.
Which would completely be cool with me because, like I said, I was a huge fan of Ruby Riott. I still am. I want her to land on her feet, and I want her. And what's even better is that you know you've got the eye of the great one when you post something on Instagram basically saying thank you to everyone for your support and that you'll land on your feet somehow. And the greatest professional wrestler of the 90s, The Rock, comments and says, yes, you're going to land on your feet. I see bright things in your future. It's like, really? Like, to me, that is absolutely a watermark, seal of approval. That's like, look, you took a fall right now, but you'll be back.
Oh, absolutely. And then on top of it, you look at like a talent in Aleister Black. Aleister Black, like, he came in with a lot of fanfare with NXT. He had that amazing debut in NXT, and then like he had the run with Ricochet for the Dusty Classic and everything, and it's just like another wasted thing. And it's now getting to a point where WWE has so much, I think they have too much talent and not enough creative.
And well, let's look at the curious case of Aleister Black.
Yes.
Okay. Who, after, he went on Twitch and talked about his release.
Yep.
He talked about having a good relationship with Vince. He talked about the fact that they were starting this Dark Father character. A Dark Father t-shirt released the day after he was canned.
Yep.
Let that sink in. And it was a brutal looking shirt. Like, it was pretty cool. I would have ordered one if I was an Aleister Black mark. Okay. But let's look at the curious case of Aleister Black. Here was a dude who came in with that brutal heavy metal entrance, who had a great run in NXT. And like other NXT talents who made the transition up, I don't think they knew what they had. I don't think they knew how to present the character.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they, like, when they were doing the whole knocking on the door and waiting for someone to answer it, that should have been him going out there and just doing this dark character right off, not right off the rip, but just being the character we saw in NXT. It didn't work out that way.
No.
Much to the same thing where, you had a Finn Balor debut. Good-looking guy, great physique, came with all of this lineage from New Japan and an even bigger following from NXT and the Demon King. And it was just kind of like it was almost forgotten. It was almost like it didn't happen, and Vince didn't know how to work with him. And, the good part is that at least with Finn Balor, he got to go back to NXT and reinvent himself and present himself as essentially the evolution of Prince Devitt in New Japan.
Yep.
And I think we were going to see that with Aleister Black, because the cool thing about the pandemic, if there can be a cool thing, ladies and gentlemen, don't throw us hate mail because I said the cool thing about the pandemic. Because as soon as that came out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, shit, that one troll is going to be very pissed off that I said something cool happened during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's always that one. But hear me out. The good part about the pandemic is it gave opportunity for people whose careers may have been a little stalled, characters may have been a little stagnant, to reinvent themselves. Do you think we would have had the tribal chief, Roman Reigns character, pop up during this pandemic? No, because part of the reason the tribal chief character came was because of his reason for being away from WWE television for 5.5 months. It's because I'm the head of my table and I need to make sure my family is safe and I don't feel secure going out during a pandemic.
Yep.
Fair enough. Okay. Braun Strowman went from being the monster among men to this giant hulking behemoth that was, entertaining, and during that time he won the Universal Championship.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre completely reinvented his character. Seth Rollins was given a chance to reinvent. There was a lot of reinvention during this time. Asuka came out of nowhere as being one of the gems of the pandemic because she was able to show her personality on top of being one of the best women in professional wrestling, period. The bad part about it is as this character for Aleister Black was just taking off, budget cuts.
Yeah, and you know what? And to roll into the other story that came out, WWE doing all these budget cuts and everything, there was the quote-unquote rumor mill bubbling that WWE could be looking to sell. Okay, sell what? What do you mean? And people were like, "Oh no, who's gonna buy?" Like, and then when people realized that they could sell the company, I'm going, okay. Do you understand what would go into that, guys? Like, the amount of, like, this isn't an overnight thing. Just because they released a bunch of talents and they're claiming budget cuts doesn't mean they're selling the company. You gotta look at and shout out to Brandon Thurston with his Wrestlenomics. I follow it on Twitter. He breaks down a lot of the TV ratings and financial aspects of it. I follow it every so often, and everything. You got to look at what wrestling has been in since March of 2020, especially WWE.
Yep.
WWE tried to make that early part of 2020 as normal as it could be within the restrictions and reasons that were going on by doing WrestleMania in a closed set at the Performance Center, no fans, but they still brought you something because all the other sports had basically shut down. There was no real entertainment value. TV shows, movies, productions were shut down. The entertainment industry as a whole shut down. So WWE's like, you know what? We have our Performance Center. We have all that. We can make a production here and use the closed set like we used to do in the 70s and 80s and stream it live through our network, which they did. WrestleMania 36 came out done very well over the 2 nights at the Performance Center. Granted, it wasn't the big spectacle that WrestleMania is known for, but it was still a solid event over those 2 nights. Then you look at it all right, WWE's like, okay, how do we make money in this? All right. Yeah, and still include the fans. Okay, they created the Thunderdome. All right, cool, Thunderdome. They went from the Performance Center doing shows at the Performance Center at the Thunderdome, moving it to the Amway Center in Orlando, paying a bunch of money to rent the Amway Center. Then they went to paying a bunch of money to rent Tropicana Field to host bigger events, pay-per-views and everything. And then once the Major League Baseball season came back, they're like, okay, we got to find something else. And then they went to where they're at now. And yes, there were fans at WrestleMania and everything, and they made the announcement that starting in July they're going back to house shows, and the fans are going to be back in the stands, and SummerSlam is going to have fans being in Vegas and everything.
I think they're trying to put 70,000 people in the Raiders.
Yes, in Allegiant Stadium,
which is great, but I don't mean to cut you off. Have you seen the ticket prices for for these shows?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm sorry. $400 for SmackDown?
Yep. Like because honestly, the July 16th one was going to be the first, July 16th, which was going to be the first SmackDown with live fans, and that was in Cleveland, Ohio. I looked at tickets and I was like, nope.
Yeah. The amount of money that they're asking for these shows, like, dude, I've paid some money for some seats, okay? Even for Raw and SmackDown, I've paid a pretty penny, especially when you try and get floor seats like right up to the ring for those events. They are a bit expensive. But my God in heaven, it's like, I get that this is one of the only entertainment things, and you have to take precautions, and talent has to be tested, and you have to make sure all this stuff is good. I'm not downplaying any of this, just so we're clear. But you're looking at the amount of money that people are being asked to pay. Some of these people still don't have jobs.
Yeah.
Some of these people are still recovering. And kudos to Brandon Thurston for breaking down the financials of how these things are run, because I think that's one thing that people seem to forget, is that you still have to pay a monthly fee. You still are paying a crew to run it. You're still having to stream it. These are problems that WCW talked about when it came to TNT, where it was like the network was asking for content. We were paying for the content out of pocket. Okay, the staff and performers are constantly getting tested. Okay, those tests, those rapid tests, are expensive as shit. In fact, Dave Chappelle, when he's doing his comedy shows in Ohio, and Joe Rogan and the operation that they're running out of Austin, before those people even sit down in the venue, they're given a rapid test. It's included in their ticket price. That's why they're spending so much goddamn money, and most of it is out of pocket for the performers. So if you're looking at an operation like WWE, I'm not saying that getting rid of someone as popular as Braun Strowman, especially, was a wise business decision. What will come to bite them in the ass is, and this can go on to a conversation about people not being happy about the recent storytelling, you can't get rid of these performers, claim budget cuts, and produce garbage. Okay? You can't hand people chicken shit and say that it's chicken salad. And a lot of people are talking about how the ratings keep dropping for certain shows. It's because they're not engaged, because they don't give a shit, because the passion for the creative, if you want to call it that, isn't there. And I mean, you can say that it's a small number of people that are complaining. You really can't when you look at the numbers. I mean, you're losing people. Do you think that in 1998 we would have lost, WWE would have lost that much money?
No,
hypothetically speaking,
not at all.
It's not at all, because you had the passion of the performers, and you also had really great storytelling on everyone. Every character had a story. Every character mattered. Crash Holly was a character I looked forward to seeing. No offense to Crash Holly, but there's a lot of people who'd be like, really? Crash Holly was someone? Yeah, Crash Holly, because Crash Holly had a great goddamn storyline. Yep. And he was not considered top tier. You can't in July, and we seem to believe that this show is bugged. So let WWE listen to this bugged performance by us. You cannot hand people garbage in July if you expect to run live shows and ask for $400 a seat for a Raw or a SmackDown.
Yeah, and this is the thing, talking about the potential sale of WWE. And once again, like, I granted, I don't know the numbers and everything, and this is why I look towards WrestleNomics on Twitter and Brandon Thurston's coverage. He stated that the selling of the company is highly unlikely with the known fact that Vince McMahon has a history of being a control freak. Now, if WWE does sell, could there be a condition where Vince McMahon will still be the CEO and in charge of the company indefinitely? It's potential. That always has a potential. But the thing is the WWE is in new leadership still within year one. They just had Nick Khan take over the last couple of months. Like, so they're doing, Nick Khan took over as chief financial officer, and he's kind of restructuring the company in the image into what he wants to what he feels like the company should be. This is the thing, is pro wrestling is not what pro wrestling was 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Pro wrestling is a global entertainment idol. Like it, and yes, over the past year or so, because of the global pandemic, you haven't been able to have them shows in England and Ireland and Europe and Asia and China and Japan and everything like they do, like the WWE had. But wrestling is still a globally known entertainment value for a lot of people. So it's just the thing of, I don't see WWE being sold anytime soon. If it is, it's gonna be a shock. It's gonna be a shock.
Well, I mean, we as wrestling fans knew that AOL Time Warner's sale of WCW at least 3 years before it happened.
Oh, absolutely.
The rumors of WCW being sold or gotten rid of started in late '97. Late 97.
Late 97, early 98.
And even then, people were like, nah, Ted Turner ain't going to sell it. Ted Turner ain't going to sell it. And then it took the merger and basically Ted Turner being put on an iceberg and shipped out to sea to die of Eskimo's death for wrestling to be gone. And then it only took, a month and a half for WWE to come in and swoop and purchase the library for $2 million.
Yeah.
And then you look at it, the thing that gets me is, first, you would hear rumblings because it is a publicly traded company. You'd at least know of letters of intent in order to purchase it. Now, the other thing that people seem to, the rumor that I'm seeing is NBC Universal is going to buy it for $4 billion. Okay, slow your roll. Do you think that Fox Sports wouldn't want to say in this as well? I mean, because they happen to produce SmackDown, which right now is the A show. And it has been for quite some time. It's got the more engaging stories. It's got the better characters. Do you think Fox is just going to let NBC Universal come in and say, yeah, this is ours now, thanks, for $4 billion? And not only that, but to put this into perspective for anyone who's listening to this, George Lucas sold Star Wars, the entirety of Star Wars, to Disney back in 2014 for $2 billion. Stan Lee's share of Marvel, as it was sold to Disney, was almost $3 billion. Okay? Do you think that Vince McMahon is going to get rid of his project, his baby, his blood, his sweat, his tears, his family's legacy for anything less than $4 billion? Like, that is almost an insult when you think of that amount of lineage and a company coming in and saying, yeah, how about $4 billion? Yes, that's a large amount of money going to one person, but he would want more. I wholeheartily believe he would say 10.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is I feel like Vince McMahon, if he decides to sell the WWE, okay? If he truly decides to sell the company, I truthfully believe that there's going to be a system in place where the people that know what they're doing are still in charge. It's just owned by someone else, but you still have people there in charge to know what they're doing because they've been there for as long as they have been.
Yeah. Yeah. You have producers and, creative. Well, right now, a lot of people hate the creative, but you have a lot of producers and talent and people working behind the scenes in production that have been working for years at that company that know how it works and know how to produce it and give you the visual aesthetics that you would expect from that product.
Yeah. And the thing is if you look back to when Vince McMahon took over the company from his dad, it wasn't so much that he bought the company, he just took it over. He's like, his dad sold the parent company or whatever, and to his son in Titan Sports, and then Titan Sports essentially grew into what it is now known as WWF WWE. But the thing is if you sell WWE, I guarantee you that the McMahon family are going to still be in charge of it somehow. They're going to be like, okay, say NBC Universal buys the company for $8.5 billion, okay? Random number, throw it out there. I guarantee you, because NBC Universal has had a relationship with them for so long, I guarantee you that you see Stephanie, Shane, Triple H installed as like the base leadership. Because that's what they've been doing for years. So,
and they've been grooming them for it.
Yeah, like Shane McMahon, and this is the thing: is a lot of people forget that Shane McMahon left at one point.
And he ended up working in China, working on the essentially what would become pay-per-view over there, in order to figure out how to become a better asset to WWE. And then he comes back a few years later. You have WWE China, WWE India. The Saudi deal is being made. His children and in-laws are building a future for the company. I don't think that Vince McMahon would just sell that for $4 billion.
No, not at all. And like I said, I bring up Shane. He's been working with WWE since the age of 15. Shane McMahon did a lot of work. Like, you had the deal between WWE and Dream Stage Entertainment, which was at that time the parent company of Pride Fighting Championships. So there was rumors that WWE could be getting into the MMA game a little bit. And then when Shane left January of 2010, he's like, at that point he wanted to pursue outside ventures, and that's where he went and did all his outside work, and he learned a lot of stuff, and then he came back. And this is the thing, is you gotta remember, wrestling at the end of the day is a business, and sometimes you have to run it like a business. You have to make budget cuts, and you have to make decisions that may not be popular and everything, like releases. And this is the thing, is now to like kind of maybe segue into the next topic or whatever, is still focusing on the IWC and everything. The fact that last year we cut a show about WWE going after the wrestlers with the third party, doing Twitch and stuff like that, okay? It's now come to a point where you have a lot of content creators out there believing that they know better, and their accounts are getting banned because of copyright laws, okay?
Yes.
Now, you have people out there doing live watches or live reacts via YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, whatever you want to call it, okay? And I don't see it so much. You don't see it so much on like Twitch or YouTube, maybe YouTube a little bit. I see a lot of it via TikTok. This the thing is, what's funny about these people that are doing these are the people that grew up during when wrestling was popular and fun. They didn't grow up with wrestling during the 80s, where if you were a wrestling fan, you kind of had to keep it to yourself. They grew up during the Attitude Era, and they remember Steve Austin studying Vince McMahon in Madison Square Garden, and that's like their moment that got them is to be a wrestling fan or whatever. Which, hey, more power to you. But the fact that these people are going on these social media sites and screen capping or doing live video reactions of WWE, AEW, so on and so forth, and then complaining about how their accounts get banned, do you all not understand copyright laws?
Copyright, see, that's, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you and I have actually had this conversation about, wouldn't it be cool to ... do a live stream of a pay-per-view and talk about it? Wouldn't it be cool if we watched They Live and actually did like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 vibe?
Yeah.
And you and I have both talked about this, but the reason that we haven't gone through with it is copyright laws in the United States are harsh.
Oh,
okay.
Yep.
Dude, you and I both know that they are extremely harsh, and that your account can get banned for, believe it or not, YouTube can pull your content if a snippet of a song by a recorded artist appears on it.
So,
okay?
Case in point, perfect example. I recently did a pack opening. I did had 100 packs on major MLB The Show, which is from San Diego Studios. I pulled a couple diamond cards, and I posted the clips on YouTube through my YouTube gaming channel. I get an email back that they've prevented videos from being shown in certain countries due to copyright laws because of the music that was on the game. Like, certain songs have been banned in certain countries, and due to copyright laws, the videos won't be viewed in those countries.
Okay. So
this is the thing. In the United States, and because I just went through a copyright class about 2 months ago, somewhere around that, where we had to research a lot of stuff dealing with copyright laws, and we had to create our own like a fake thing and put a copyright to it or whatever.
Right.
Yo, listen, if you're listening to this and you live stream WWE or AEW via TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, whatever, and then your account gets banned, be glad that that's all that happened. Because if you continuously do this, these companies, you won't have to deal with the wrestling companies themselves. you're going to have to deal with the organizations that they broadcast on, being NBC Universal, Fox Sports, and TNT TBS respectively. And these companies will come after you hard for copyright infringement. The fact that you're creating content off of their already registered and owned licensed material.
And this is one of the things that both you and I have talked about, where it's like, you know, I certainly do not want my YouTube channel, Northern Fury, nor would I want any other of my stuff killed, essentially, because I just wanted to, you know, view something and have a video playing in the background that may or may not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like if you want to, and this is the thing, if you want to do a live reaction, live watch or whatever, and you're doing something and there's sound in the back, that's fine. You can do that. It doesn't. You're not broadcasting any copyright material. All it is audio. Audio is just the audio. That's it. We've done live watches, but of No Holds Barred, and that. But the thing is we've all muted the movie. We've muted the TV, the movie, whatever we're watching it on and we're just talking it as we're watching it with the audio muted. That's fine. Yeah. But what I'm talking about is these content creators are sitting here and they have like your live stream of the show in like a split screen type thing. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm waiting because a lot of it's been done with AEW that I've seen. Nick Khan and the Khan family are smart enough that if they get aware of this, you're going to have AEW and Turner and Time Warner or whatever, whoever, I believe it's still TNT. I believe it's still Time Warner that has ownership to TNT and TBS. You're going to be in trouble. Like, this is the thing, is you need, in the world that we are in, and I understand, like, you have a lot of gray area as far as content creation and everything. Like Twitch, you can stream video games and everything, but the thing is the big thing with that is, yes, I can go on my Twitch channel and stream me playing MLB The Show or Madden or whatever. The reason that I can do that is because I've already paid my money to buy the game, to purchase the game.
Yes. I've
paid my money. I've purchased the game. I have ownership of this copy of the game. That's what allows me to do. That's what allows you to go on Twitch and stream that content. You have ownership to the content you're streaming. If you're on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, streaming a live pay-per-view event or live show like AEW Dynamite or one of their pay-per-views or WWE Raw or SmackDown, you don't have ownership to that content. You cannot stream it on a third-party source live and be like, and have your little camera above it and you doing commentary in live action. You're not allowed. You can get in trouble. And what's funny is, like, these people, their accounts get banned, and then they want to create minor secondary accounts and bitch and complain and cry about it, about how their account got banned.
And to me, it's like, you know, we talk about this all the time, where it's like, you know, you have all this awesome technology at your disposal, and wouldn't it be cool if you could just do it? But this is an interesting conversation that we're having, because it reminds me of the Napster debate back in 99 and 2000. Okay, and for those who are young and do not remember what Napster was a music file sharing program that people used in order to get free music. Okay? And in fact, Metallica and Dr. Dre were two of the biggest, most prominent, artists to go out and be like, dude, this isn't cool. Like, copyright. Like, the artists are trying to present a product in a certain way. They took it from the artistic standpoint and then brought the financial into it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? From the artistic standpoint, these wrestling companies, this is going to sound weird, they're artists, okay? They view things from a certain lens. They want to present the company and the work that they're doing in a certain light, okay? They want the fans to enjoy the product the way that they intended it to be. Now, we as wrestling fans love our product. We love our stuff. But at the same token, like, guys, I don't want to say this in a mean way, but just suck it up. You know what I mean? Just suck it up. Just deal with the fact that, like, yes, you want to do audio commentary over it and blah, 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 blah. But you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. You can't go on another ghost account and then complain about it, because guess what? It's not your content to begin with. You are a fan of the content, but it is not your content, period.
And this is the thing that I find hilariously funny about it is we've mentioned it earlier. WWE, starting in July, is going to be back on the house show circuit. You're going to have live fans in attendance. They're setting up for live fans for Summerslam. We're getting to the point where fans are going to be back in the stands. We just saw AEW Double or Nothing with a full crowd. Okay? Now, if you're at a show and you're one of the lucky people that magically get to record footage on your cell phone without getting caught, because they crack down on that, more power to you. Great, awesome, fantastic. But it's going to be interesting with the fans, because now what you have is you have even more opportunities for stuff to happen the wrong way. And granted, yes, nothing happened bad at Double or Nothing with the full crowd and everything, but I feel like within the next 3 months, you're going to have people press their luck.
Yes. I think that there's going to be, there is going to be this air of excitement around all of this. And I'm guilty of it. I will openly say it. I'm guilty of being at wrestling shows and recording stuff. Okay, it's part of the experience now. Like, everyone has a video recorder in their pocket.
They have a mini computer in their pocket.
Yeah, they have a computer that's better than the entire Apollo mission computer system in their pocket right now, and they use it to look at fat ass chicks and TikTok videos. Let's be honest. But the funny part about it is, it's like, we all record it. I mean, you go back and you look at, prime example of this, WrestleMania this year. Okay. Roman Reigns put on his Instagram, "It's great to be back," because it was a black and white photo of Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman walking down the aisle, heading down to WrestleMania, heading down to his match at WrestleMania, and you see people holding up cell phones because to them it was a huge moment. Just don't be the person that records the entire show or streams the entire show on Facebook Live.
Yep.
Because shockingly enough, I'm going to say this in the nicest possible fashion. No one wants to see your shitty quality when they can sign on to Peacock and see it in full HD glory.
Yeah, and this is the thing is, if you wanna sit at independent wrestling show in your local town, city, village, or whatever, and stream the main event match or whatever may be the case, ask for permission, plain and simple. I guarantee you, if you're a fan or if you know a wrestler that the wrestler's your friend, just be like, hey, they ask you like to record their match and you didn't come with them, make sure you get like the promoter's permission, because what I feel is going to happen is now we're in the age of where we have mini computers in our pockets. We can record shit at a moment's notice and everything. People are so quick to hit that record button no matter what. Whether it's a fight on the subway, whether it's some kind of incident between two different people of different races, whatever. People are so quick to hit that record button. But now that you wrestling fans are coming back in droves, and with AEW having full crowds and WWE about to have full crowds, Impact Wrestling and ROH are probably going to get to that point where they have crowds again. Be smart. Just be smart. Like, if like all of a sudden you're at a WWE show and someone shows and you hear the glass break and it's Steve Austin, and you would just like, you want to get the video of him come in the ring and be like, hey, I saw Austin live for the first time in 10 years or whatever. Cool, more power to you. That's a memory for you. There's no reason, and like you said, there's no reason to sit there and try to live stream an entire episode of Raw like through your Facebook Live or whatever, because you know what? Television has better quality.
Yeah. And I mean, it's all experiences. We're all trying to enjoy it. And, as a fan, I cannot wait to get back and see live pro wrestling and live concerts and all that other stuff. And to me, SummerSlam is, I know this is going to sound weird to say this, right around the corner. You know what I mean? It's like 70,000 fans could be in attendance at SummerSlam this year. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That is more than we're at WrestleMania this year.
Yep. Actually double. Or
yes.
Yeah, because I think WrestleMania had 35.
Yeah, because a lot of they had the lower bowl had a good amount of people, and even the floor seating wasn't super packed in.
Yeah. I think they had a total. I think it was a total of 35,000 at WrestleMania. So yeah, they're looking to double the size.
Yeah.
For Allegiant Stadium, and then on top of that, when they made the announcement, they're apparently going to try to make sure SummerSlam ends early enough for people to make their way over to the Manny Pacquiao fight, because it's the same night.
That's insanity. That's insanity. And yeah, actually it will end early enough, because if they start it at what, 5, 6
SummerSlam most probably will start at 6 and go until 10.
That's not bad. That's actually really good, all things considering. I mean, they're not going to do like a WrestleMania 7-hour production for SummerSlam, but they've got a lot of great storylines going on and a lot of rumors flying for who's going to show up and who is re-signed.
Yep.
And whose television shows are now done filming, so their schedule is open. Where SummerSlam could be as big as a WrestleMania this year, particularly because of the fans and the availability of certain superstars.
Yeah, so as you mentioned that, according to WrestlingInc.com, WWE, of course, reportedly wants Brock Lesnar for SummerSlam. It was recently reported from Andrew Zarian on the Mat Men podcast that Lesnar was mentioned early on in discussions for potential SummerSlam plans, as the company wanted to do something with him on the biggest show of the summer. There is no credible talk of Lesnar already being booked for a SummerSlam match, but it is notable that they want him back for SummerSlam. It was recently reported that WWE wanted a big main event and a big celebrity guest host for Summerslam to make it the NFL stadium worthy. The rumor on the main event would be John Cena versus Roman Reigns, and the rumored guest host is rapper Cardi B. But Lesnar also fits into the WWE plan, wanting a stacked up lineup for SummerSlam. Now,
so before we continue this, I would like to just say they would like John Cena versus Roman Reigns. They would like Brock Lesnar, and Cardi B is allegedly a rapper. Continue.
Yes. So, minus the whole Cardi B talk, I could care less. I think the only reason that Cardi B name has been involved is because there was the situation where I think Bayley dropped her name during an episode of SmackDown or a pay-per-view, and Cardi B tweeted about it. So, I digress. Whatever. John Cena versus Roman Reigns would be an amazing match. And if WWE wants Brock Lesnar there, you have the perfect... This is where I'm conflicted. Because, yes, they want John Cena versus Roman Reigns. How interesting would it be if Brock Lesnar was to challenge Reigns because of the Paul Heyman factor?
See,
even a little more of confliction is, okay, you have John Cena versus Roman Reigns. All right, Brock Lesnar agrees to be at SummerSlam. Brock Lesnar is going to face Bobby Lashley for the title. Does Paul Heyman go to the ring with Brock Lesnar as well?
Now, I know in my heart of hearts, the inevitable showdown is going to come to Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Do I believe that they could, because, you know, we are already talking about WrestleMania level main events coming up. This wouldn't be the first time that those two men faced off at a WrestleMania, so, you know, but this is a this is a shift, because Roman Reigns is not the same big dog character going into this.
Nope.
Okay, he is the tribal chief. He wants you to acknowledge. And I don't believe in Texas next year we're going to get Roman Reigns versus The Rock. I don't believe it, because The Rock's schedule with a lot of DC films coming up has got him busy way into 2022. Okay, so let's just... The Rock is not... I cannot believe I'm about to say this. The Rock's not ready to get in the ring because he's got franchises in Hollywood to build, and that's not a bad statement. I'd see that in Los Angeles in a couple years when they do WrestleMania Hollywood. Okay, that's down the road. If you wanted to build Brock versus Roman, do not blow your load at SummerSlam. Make them wait. Make them wait and see almost like an alpha male tit for tat. I'm the better champion. No, I'm the better champion. And you have Paul Heyman in the middle. And you have Paul Heyman essentially trying to navigate these two super egos whose characters now are completely different, but they're both Paul Heyman guys. Brock Lesnar needs a guy on the mic to speak for him.
Oh, absolutely.
He prefers it. Paul Heyman relishes it. But if
imagine the promos between Heyman and MVP.
Oh my God, I will cry. I will cry because they will be master classes in promo 101. On the flip side of that, though, Roman Reigns doesn't need Paul Heyman as a mouthpiece. Paul Heyman does speak on behalf of his tribal chief as his, not his advocate, but as his, you know,
advisor.
Roman can cut promos and slyly say that he's the better champion, much in the same way he did with Drew McIntyre, that this is the A show, you're on the B show.
Yep.
And I mean, that could put Paul in some precarious positions, because then you wouldn't necessarily imagine Brock Lesnar coming back and doing this and, you know, getting pissy, and then saying, fuck it, joining the Royal Rumble, winning the Royal Rumble, and being like, now we get to find out who the real champion is. I don't think John Cena needs to come back for a 17th title reign. Nor do I want to see him beat Roman Reigns, because John Cena right now has got such a great gig going on in Hollywood, and next year when his Peacemaker show comes out and extends the Snyderverse on HBO Max, if you don't know what the Snyderverse is, just hashtag it. You'll have 1,000 nerds yelling at you in 3 seconds or less. I think that one of the things that you have to look at is the new guard is doing a fantastic job. The only reason you would sprinkle some of that Brock dust or a little bit of the Cena rub on any superstars is to build them up better. I personally would love to see Brock versus Bobby Lashley, because ever since Lashley went into MMA, there was always kind of that talk. Because they're both collegiate wrestlers.
They've both done MMA. They have similar career tracks.
And Bobby Lashley, though, has always kind of been 1A. He hasn't been 1. Nope. You know what I mean? He hasn't been at that highest level. And to me, Brock Lesnar had a great 2-year run, left, won the New Japan Heavyweight Championship. Okay, so that's one thing that he has over Bobby Lashley. Okay, he went and became a UFC champion twice over, something he has over Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley was never UFC champion. Okay, Bobby Lashley, though, was TNA champion. Okay, Bobby Lashley is now WWE champion. Bobby Lashley has been United States champion, Intercontinental champion. I don't believe he's a Grand Slam champion. I don't believe he won a tag team title.
No, he's never won the tag titles.
ECW champion. Okay, so you look at it, both of them have had great careers. I think now would be the time to pull the trigger. And John Cena coming back and going at Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, we have an opportunity for that storyline to unfold, because that seems to be the way that their story goes. I don't think John Cena versus Roman Reigns is ever going to be a WrestleMania match. Because
no.
The first time that they faced each other, it wasn't at a WrestleMania either.
Nope. I don't think that it's going to be a WrestleMania match either. Because I fully believe that John Cena may not be at where The Rock is right now, like Hollywood wise, but he's not that far behind.
No, he's not. He is very, my God. The Rock can write a check for anything at this point in time. And The Rock is different than John Cena for a lot of different reasons, not just including the Hollywood thing. You have The Rock's businesses that he's involved with, the contracts that he's worked out, Under Armour, his own tequila company, his own soft drink with Coca-Cola. You have his hands in ice cream supplements. You have his production company, $7 Production, which does a lot more than just rock movies. You know what I mean? And then, of course, there are the movies he's attached to. I mean, he is now shooting has begun for Black Adam and Shazam 2, both of which he's in. So he's going into DC Comics. John Cena has done as well. He's got a TV show coming off of it. John Cena's niche, though, seems to be comedies. John Cena's comedic chops are great. Like, he's a weird combination of things. But of the wrestlers gone Hollywood, John Cena's there, but The Rock is always just going to be that little bit above.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not a knock on him, which is why if you were to look at the list of superstars that Roman Reigns has made, quote, acknowledge him, it's been a who's who so far, including Braun Strowman, who recently released, Edge, the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, Jimmy and Jey Uso,
Daniel Bryan.
It's been a lot of talented workers have gone into creating this thing. Do I believe he needs the cherry on the top in order to do it? Yes. Do I believe that cherry on the top would be The Rock? Yes. I do think that's years off. I think Brock Lesnar, though, would be an intriguing WrestleMania endeavor for Roman Reigns. I think that match would end up being the best that those two have done together.
Oh, absolutely, especially with the attitude change that Roman Reigns has had. And then on top of that, if you look at what just transpired this past week on SmackDown, Roman Reigns now looks like it's like, okay, my Jimmy and Jay were going for the tag titles. It now looks like Roman Reigns like, yo, I'm the head of the table. Acknowledge me. I need to be the only champion here.
Which is such a weird thing because it goes against the stable process.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It goes against these power trips. Like, if you look at what they're doing in AEW, you have the Bucks and Kenny Omega, respective champions. But then, you look at other stables that have been in the past, the Bloodline being all together with championships would be one hell of a storyline if it were done right, especially considering that Tamina has got a women's championship over on her shoulder. But I mean, you could always include whoever you want to. But the thought that gets me is, this is a weird character. This is a different character than Brock Lesnar has faced in previous storylines. So let's take this into consideration. I said earlier, one of the good things to come out of the pandemic, again, troll, don't yell at us, is character change. Characters were able to adapt and become new things. Brock Lesnar, we haven't seen since he lost to Drew McIntyre at the beginning of the pandemic. So Brock would just show up being the same Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Unless they're, hypothetically speaking, the Brock Lesnar that would show up, you'd be pulling him out of cold storage, dusting off the ice, and just being like, go kill him. Is that the exciting kind of story that you want to see? The killer that just, I'm back and I want to hurt you? Or do you want to see Brock Lesnar put in a situation where, holy shit, Brock might actually lose?
And you know what? I feel like the approach that they need to take is similar to the approach they took leading into that first Lesnar-Goldberg match.
That's a good approach.
But instead of Lesnar being in the role of Goldberg versus Lesnar being in the role that he was in that, Lesnar being in the role of Goldberg and going, and you're like, yeah, you've done all this, you're the tribal chief, acknowledge me, whatever. But, and maybe not so much have that angle of Paul Heyman or whatever there. And obviously, Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman's relationship, very good relationship. They've been friends for years and everything. But imagine somebody that can rival Heyman promo-wise coming out with Lesnar. I don't know who it would be, to be honest.
And you'd have to find someone that would be... This is one of the conundrums with Brock Lesnar is it would need to be someone that Brock would want to work with.
Yes.
Okay, because Brock, it's very well known that Brock works with who he wants to work with. He doesn't just work with who they want him to work with. So there's that. You'd need someone that feels as passionate about the business as Paul Heyman and can get across this monster, so to speak. Do we have an Adam Pearce almost bring in Brock Lesnar as kind of like a look, you've destroyed the Mysterios. Like, you're doing all that. Like, Daniel Bryan is gone because of you. Edge hasn't been back since WrestleMania. Like almost, I hate to say it in this fashion, but like, break glass in case of war.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Adam Pearce gets to a point where he's like, I've got no other options. Boom. Here comes the pain. Which, to me, would be cool because Adam Pearce is good on the mic. Maybe not promo for promo and passionate as Paul Heyman is, but it would at least be someone to foil with him because you can't beat Paul Heyman on a microphone.
No, and maybe even not. Now that you bring up the Adam Pearce angle of it, break glass in case of emergency type deal. Lesnar, and I know Lesnar doesn't per se like to talk, but what if? Okay, Pierce is in the ring, Reigns in the ring. He's cutting the thing. He's doing the promo. You know what? You've destroyed the Mysterios. You've driven away Daniel Bryan, Edge, so on and so forth. You leave me no choice at this point. And he brings out Lesnar, and not so much Lesnar directs his attention towards Reigns. He gives Reigns the acknowledgement, we've faced before. I know I can beat you. But he looks at Heyman and he goes, this is what you replaced me with? Kind of.
So do you think you want to bring in Brock as almost insulted and hurt?
You know what? In a way, like I said, it would be a very the way that I see it is in that same going into that SummerSlam match between Brock and Goldberg, putting Brock in that Goldberg role, but adding the emotional effect of Heyman being behind Reigns instead of him. Because the thing is, you got to remember, after Lesnar left, it was a while before Heyman got introduced as the guy behind Reigns.
Yeah, it was about 5 months. It was about the duration of Roman Reigns' self-imposed exile.
Yep. Because of the leukemia and everything. So when Reigns came back and he had this new, and he came back and he's like, okay, Fiend, Strowman, this is my title, and he went instantly for the title. You hadn't seen Brock Lesnar in that entire time, and then all of a sudden, the guy that you associate with Brock Lesnar the most is now suddenly supporting the guy that Brock Lesnar had immense wars with.
It is tailor-made.
No, yeah.
It is a tailor-made story, and I think it would be almost as good as Punk versus Brock, where when Punk came back after being gone,
yep,
and Heyman turned on him, and he was like, granted, Brock Lesnar is no tiny man.
No, not at all.
He's not 205 pounds. Okay, CM Punk was 205, 210 when he faced Brock Lesnar at 275 at the time?
Yeah, 275, 280.
There's no David versus Goliath kind of mentality. But Brock Lesnar has shown, follow me on this one, that he can show vulnerability against a smaller guy. CM Punk being one of them, Finn Balor,
Daniel Bryan,
Seth Rollins, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles.
Yep.
The list goes on and on. That although he didn't necessarily want to come back and face smaller guys, the smaller guys that he worked my God, they put on clinics. You know what I mean? Samoa Joe. We'll add Samoa Joe into that because Samoa Joe isn't a giant. He's a big dude, not a giant. Now, let's take that into the realm of this storyline. Yes, he's beaten Roman Reigns, but if Roman Reigns is coming at him with the Usos in tow and actually put Brock Lesnar in a vulnerable position, you might be able to strangely pull off a face turn of Brock Lesnar, with Brock Lesnar still being an aggressor, just not as aggressive as the Bloodline.
Yep. Yeah, I honestly could see that. You honestly could pull that off.
Reminiscent of his feud against Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, small guy.
Yep.
But Kurt Angle, along with, Team Angle, leading into WrestleMania 19, really did provide you with a lot of great storytelling. And remember, that is an era that we talk about where SmackDown had the better storylines. SmackDown had the better angles. So you look at all of this, right? And there is a huge probability that this storyline could be multi-layered leading into next year's WrestleMania, going into Texas, where they want to put 100,000 people in AT&T Stadium next year as kind of like the big WrestleMania reboot, so to speak.
Yep.
You're gonna need some names. You're gonna need some guns. And Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, with all of this building up, and Roman beating Brock Lesnar would almost ensure this whole head of the table gimmick leading into the following WrestleMania against potentially The Rock.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that, so it was Tampa, Dallas, and then what, New York?
No, it's Tampa, Dallas, Hollywood.
Okay, so yeah, Hollywood. The Hollywood one is the prime spot for The Rock because that's his new town. And
the big thing is that you have to now take into consideration, by the time we're talking 2 years ahead.
Yep.
You don't know who's going to be in the title pictures coming up, because a lot of guys have had a stellar year in spite of a pandemic. Drew McIntyre continues to be in the title picture right now.
I feel that Sheamus is gonna be able to have a run. As much as I know a lot of people hate him, I honestly think Baron Corbin's gonna be in the picture at some point.
Cesaro is still in the picture.
Yep. Seth Rollins, Damian Priest, Matt Riddle, yeah.
What they're doing with Riddle right now is, I'm loving RK Bro. Must preface this.
Yeah.
I'm having so much fun with this silly stoner with no shoes, with just flip-flops and a little scooter, stoned off his ass, hanging out with the guy that everyone knows is just waiting to RKO him.
Yep.
He's just waiting for a reason to punt kick him. But what's going on? The dude who's been around for 20 years is building a superstar? You mean to tell me that Randy Orton, one of the greatest of all time, is building someone, and he's been in the company for 20 years? Like, who does that?
Yeah.
It's what you do. And he's building someone in Riddle and Damian Priest in 2 years' time, mark my words, that is a WrestleMania main event.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is you have Riddle with Randy Orton, and you have Damian Priest with The Miz, which is the two guys that are part of that guard that have been there for 2+ decades.
Mm-hmm.
And know how the system works and know that their time's coming up, so they need to build younger talent.
Yeah, Randy Orton has said it himself. He's like, yeah, I got a couple good years left in me. It's like, when you're Randy Orton, okay, he made his debut in 2002. Okay, next year is the 20th anniversary of Randy Orton and John Cena and Dave Bautista and Brock Lesnar all being in WWE.
Yep.
Okay, Randy Orton, other than injury, has had the longest uninterrupted tenure of any of those guys. Okay, John Cena went to Hollywood. Dave Bautista went to Hollywood. Yeah, Brock Lesnar went and beat the shit out of people in the UFC, and actually, if you want to look at it, became one of the most marquee guys in all of combat sports. Okay, UFC 100, prime example of that, him versus Frank Mir for the title. And you look at Randy Orton, and Randy Orton has been able to go through these last 3 decades and is just doing what stars are supposed to do. He understands, I'm not going to be around here forever. I might want to hang out with my family more. You know, the arms aren't, the shoulders aren't working. So what is he doing? He's building a great storyline with someone who is legitimately a great wrestler. And we're not talking professional wrestler, we're talking great amateur wrestler. And Matt Riddle still has one of the most watched knockouts in Ultimate Fighter history.
Yep.
I mean, that is one of the top 10 knockouts in that show's history, if not the knockout. And I mean, it also helps that he's basically the reincarnation of Rob Van Dam in a lot of perspective ways.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Like he is the reincarnation of Rob Van Dam. This is the thing is you look at how wrestling is right now as we're getting close to wrapping things up here. And in the next couple of months, you're going to have WWE fans back at shows. AEW's got fans at shows. I'm sure you're going to see fans at Impact and ROH and everything. What I feel is going to happen is, yes, WWE has claimed budget cuts, and that's what led to the releases. I believe you're going to see Braun Strowman show up somewhere. I don't know whether it'll be ROH, Impact, AEW, New Japan, whatever. You're going to have Strowman show up somewhere. Strowman, unfortunately, I don't know if he'll show up somewhere. I know he will. It's just a matter of time. But Strowman is in a very awkward place, because Strowman reminds you of the days of the big guys. The days of your Vaders and Stan Hansens and that. Could I see him in New Japan and go and get over? Oh, absolutely. But the thing is New Japan's not what it used to be back in the days of the Stan Hansens and the Big Van Vaders and that. Aleister Black's probably going to end up in one of those places as well. Same thing with Ruby Riott. Same thing. I talked about Lana getting hooked up with her husband again, and that angle. It's the thing of the wrestling business is, as far as the national scene, is flourishing, and then it's only going to trickle down to the independent scenes as well, because like we've said in previous shows, is the pandemic killed a lot of what are known as shindies, and on top of it, I think it also eliminated a lot of those wrestlers that didn't get proper training, don't work out, whatever would be the case. I think the last year, and now you've seen pro wrestling get to the point where you're on your AEW Darks, you're having name guys from the independents getting shots. Same thing with NXT. Same thing with Impact, same thing with ROH. Impact Wrestling, due to the fact that their relationship with Sami Callihan, you're seeing some of the up and coming talent from Ohio in Impact. Due to the relationships due to the relationship with AEW and the Butcher and the Blade, you're seeing the Buffalo Club. Due to other relationships within New York. Hell, Rick Recon was just on AEW Dark.
Robo, the Punjabi Lion, who Dynasty champion and I believe Immortal champion as well.
Yeah, you're seeing these guys that are out there in these higher end indie companies in various states get shots where these shots may not have been as available or as readily open as it like 3 years ago. And that's because the landscape has changed. The landscape has changed to the point of WWE is not the only game in town anymore. And it's a matter of time before you see and we've called it, you've said it, and we're in a renaissance era of wrestling. And I think in the next, now as we're coming out of this pandemic and everything with the COVID-19 and all that, you're going to see a rise in wrestling again, and wrestling at the apex could be at a major apex a year from now. To the point where maybe these shows are pulling not the same numbers that you saw back in the 90s during the Monday Night Wars, where you saw like the 5.5s and the 6.2s and the near 7s. But you could see AEW or WWE pulling 3s and maybe close to 4s because they're building up their talent.
We could get back to that point. I think we could get post-war era numbers if they really tried. And you're absolutely right. We're in a wrestling renaissance, and I'm so happy for the people that have worked their asses off who are getting an opportunity to excel at professional wrestling.
Yeah, and that's same thing. It's just what I'm going to say this is there are people out there that may have left pro wrestling for various reasons over the last 2 years. You might start seeing some of those guys come back for a final run and be able to, because they had name value 2 years ago, they still have name value because people remember them. They're going to come back, and they might have a potential run because of the people they work. So it's one of them things of pro wrestling is an ever-changing, ever-growing business. And as we get further into now the 2020s, and yes, the first year and a half have not been the greatest as far as like life, but who says next year could be completely different? Because what it is, and I said this to yourself, is AEW's gearing up for a war.
Mm-hmm. We thought it was just a one shot, but it looks like they want a little bit more. And what's funny is, and what makes me think that they're getting up for the war is because of the people they're signing, and the fact that Nick Khan, the Khan versus Khan fight.
Yeah, the Khan versus Khan fight. Like when he cut that promo about the New Japan discussions, I'm just like, oh my god.
We'll end on this one because you could tell he was pissed, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one that, because people were like, oh my God, one take Tony, you know. I'm sitting there, I'm like, no, guys, I don't think you get this. I think he's actually pissed right now.
Yeah. Because the thing is because when Tony Khan cut that promo about Nick Khan taught the report me and the WWE was in talks with New Japan Pro Wrestling about being their only partner as far as the Americas, I'm going. I when I read that, I was like, that's weird. Okay. And then the secondary report came out saying that it was just talks to allow Daniel Bryan to go to New Japan. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. That's a little better. And then Tony Khan cut the promo he did. And when I saw him do the promo, I'm like, yo, this man is pissed. And he is not happy. He's like, I attributed that promo to the same light of the Tony Schiavone put asses in the seats line. It's the spark that's going to start the war.
It's definitely the thing with New Japan is definitely going to end up being the fact that New Japan is becoming this battleground.
Yep.
For major companies. It's like Tony Khan is right. He's done more with it, and technically he does still have their United States champion on his television show.
Absolutely.
And he also has their former Intercontinental champion on his show, and he's got several of their former World Heavyweight champions. He's got a better relationship going on.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that if you're a businessman and you all of a sudden hear, hey, did you know that WWE is trying to work a deal with New Japan? I would be livid. I would be furious as all hell. And it came out in his words. You could tell he was angry.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing, what's funny is he cut that promo, and since that promo's been cut, you've heard nothing as far as any kind of response or any further details as to what WWE had contacted New Japan Pro Wrestling about. And
I mean, dead in the water.
Yep, dead in the water. And what it is the last report that I saw it wasn't like direct contact. It was more like back channel type shit. So I listen, you know what? If you look at everything that AEW has done over the past 3 years, that since the announcement of them being created, they've grown exponentially. I'm calling it. Next year you're gonna see better numbers, but I think AEW is gonna have the better product. But the thing is AEW's got Dynamite Wednesdays. They're gonna have Rampage Fridays. The question being is, does AEW gear up and have enough balls to go after Monday nights?
I think that if you and we can bring this all back to a conversation we had earlier.
Yep.
If Vince McMahon sells, AEW goes for throat. Because I will honestly believe it to myself that as long as the old man is around, this is the guy that has buried the territories. He's seen so many promotions come and go.
Yep.
He beat Ted Turner. He's not afraid to do what must be done. But the wrestling fans have changed. And I think wrestling fans demand more of their product. And because we've had this discussion before, there's so much out there in forms of content that bringing out a legend or two is not going to work anymore. Okay, you're going to have to build a lot of substance. And if right now, if AEW plays it smart, not safe, smart, builds their stars, gives you world heavyweight champion Darby Allin, gives you these guys and makes you believe in them to the point where you start recognizing them on t-shirts. That's the big thing. Merchandise, name recognition, face recognition. If you start seeing that out in public more, then absolutely, I think they could go against Monday Night and draw some numbers. You know, TNA did try it in 2010, and the results weren't great because they did not commit. I honestly think that if Tony Khan commits and the investors and the executive vice presidents commit, then yes, I do think they could go at Monday Night and make one hell of a go of it.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And to wrap up the final point, you're absolutely right. Vince McMahon has been through enough, and he's gone through enough from territories, federal trials, losing in TV ratings, multiple companies coming for his spot. Like, he's seen it all, he's done it all. He will constantly do what is necessary to be done, and if AEW comes after him, he's gonna be ready for it. But if by some knock on wood opportunity comes around and WWE sells, I guarantee you, I absolutely agree with you that AEW goes for the jugular. So, but that's going to do it for us here on Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Not watching, listening. Of course, check us out on social media, Facebook.com/Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast, Twitter, Turnbuckle Talk, TBRT Radio _podcast. I might have to verify that, but if you search us, you'll find the Twitter. You can check me out, EngageHighs83 on Twitter. Dan is at Sergeant Fury, of course. But for Dan Fury, I've been Pat G. This has been TTRP. We will see you on the flip side. The Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast is brought to you by Gear Network and ShopGear.com. We can be listened to via Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else you can get your podcasts. The TTRP introduction was done by Trevor Dugan. The show is hosted by Patrick Gancheski and Daniel Roberts. Post-production of the TTRP is done by Patrick Gancheski and John Cimino. If you'd like to follow us via social media, you can search Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast on Facebook. You can follow us at Twitter by using the name Turnbuckle_talk. Or if you have questions or concerns, you can reach us via email at turnbuckletlkradio@gmail.com. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast, downloading our episodes, following us on social media, and interacting with us.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.